So for those of you watching, my name's Dutcher Snedeker. I play music. I work, in a variety of different parts of the industry, doing, sound engineering, a little bit of album review writing. I work with Third Coast Recording Company, Crooked Tree Creative, just kind of bouncing around, seeing what sticks. And we're happy to be here on behalf of the Michigan Music Alliance, which a lot of you know. They are providing the Michigan music community with music business education programming and rich community building experiences that create lasting connection and collaboration. And yes, I did have to read that because I got the gist. But so I think to start off, why don't we just kind of do a quick go around and introduce what you guys do and who you are and all that good stuff. Maybe start with, at least in my window, Luke is the first one.
What's up? Hi, everybody. My name is Luke Sass. Hi, Dutcher. Nice to see everybody here as well. Hi, everyone, on a nice Monday night. My name is Luke Sass. I currently am on furlough as the promotional manager at Founders Brewing Company, overseeing all festivals, entertainment, large-scale events, talent buying, booking, that kind of stuff. Also, have some experience running my own company called Gold Coast Entertainment for 3 or 4 or 5 years back in the day, and I used to manage a band called Four Finger Five.
Awesome. And it looks like Val is next.
I am next. I'm Val Walters. I'm the talent buyer at Val's Brewery, Val's Eccentric Cafe in Kalamazoo. I am also the interim special events coordinator now, so that we can get our fine folks back. So I'm wearing a couple hats, but I've been booking shows since 2003. So a long run that's come to a nice pause, but hopefully we'll start right back up. So that is the world where I am coming from.
Awesome. And looks like Brandon, you're up next.
Yeah, hey guys, I'm Brandon. I do the booking and promotion at the Livery in Benton Harbor, Michigan. This is my 6th year here. I guess we didn't really do a whole lot this year after March. So before that, I did a lot of production work with CID Entertainment, kind of freelance around the country. So been around the scene a little bit and haven't seen anything like this 2020. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's definitely curveball is understatement. And it looks like re-invited. Yeah, she vanished, and it says she's connecting. Let me see if I remove and then re-add. Oh, there she is. Hello. Oh, now she's gone again. Let's try it again. There we go.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. You're up next. Perfect timing.
Perfect. Well, I'm sad that I missed all of the other intros. What did you say? What should I say? I'm Laura. I work for Fleming Artists as a booking agent. I've been with Fleming for I think actually right on a year at this point. Hi, Caroline or Carolyn. I never get that right. Yeah, and I was an agent before that. I worked for a boutique agency of my own called Mile One for about 4 years. Before that, I am first and foremost a musician. And I went to school for vocal jazz. I was in an Americana ensemble band and singer, songwriter, pianist, all of the things. But right now, really enjoying booking.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
Rescheduling.
That's right, exactly.
Wow. Yeah. So I see a lot of comments. So I'm glad people are, saying hi and hello to everyone again who are tuning in. Also, I'd like to say that any questions you guys have, feel free to toss them in the chat. I'll be sifting through it as the discussion goes on, and we'll have kind of one big chunk of questions and answers, so that everyone feels like they got their bit of knowledge they wanted to take away from it. So, so I think to start off, I mean, the elephant in the room, 2020, this year of tons of changes, tons of curveballs and things that, no one expected. Maybe we could share a little bit about, each of your personal experiences with this year, what it looks like to, be technically in the industry still, but on kind of this weird sideline, waiting for, like, coach, tag me in, that kind of feeling of like, I'm ready to play. But maybe we could start with I don't know, there's the windows keep changing. Brandon, let's start with you.
Yeah, in March when this all kind of came down on us, we were so optimistic that, this will be, a few months. We'll all, come together. We'll squash this. So, it was kind of a rescheduling process. And we hoped it was going to be short term. But, as we kind of crept towards June, it became a bit more apparent that things were serious and going to be on hold for a while. So I think the rescheduling and rebooking kind of slowed down, and it was more of almost of a stalemate between, artist and venue, and it was mutual. I feel, it's the deals in place from last year, earlier this year, aren't making sense for this unpredictable future of where things are going to be. And I know for a small venue like the Livery, things just really have to be 100%. With a limited capacity, even this latest executive order, with a 250 cap down to 50 people, it's just not really viable for venue nor artists. So it just kind of leaves us at this impasse, which is kind of tough to swallow. We all want to be back to work. We all want to have the entertainment and enjoy it ourselves too, on top of the work. But I think it's just going to be testing our patience a bit more as we kind of see things moving more digital. I think that's kind of where our focus is we start shifting, at least for the immediate future. So, just a whirlwind of things, from the whole rescheduling to the acceptance of this is going to take a little while for us to get back full steam is, been a tough pill for many, I'm sure. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of, just seeing what, as things, especially with this latest executive order, these different announcements of like, okay, we can kind of poke, like, the door's opening a little bit and you can let a couple people in and maybe try something, maybe wait, maybe, there's a lot of maybes and
that's just, it's really tough right now. I think safety is, everyone's number one concern, and that's just kind of what's guiding our hand ultimately. So until we feel 100% certain that this is going to be a safe environment for live music, on top of being a sustainable environment for artists and venue, it's just really a no-brainer right now for us just to kind of stay still. And we are kind of brainstorming some things on the back end, like I said, in that digital realm. So not all is lost, but it's definitely seen a huge shift,
Yeah, definitely. I know, coming from playing in a band and trying to book for them, and now that we've added 3 new members, we have, people traveling from Ann Arbor, South Bend, and sometimes Muskegon, and, all these little different environments. And you don't want to accidentally, like, okay, he came over here and somehow got exposed to it and then brought it. It's like, it just gets way messier trying to like unless it's like outdoors, the people putting it on, you have a lot of control over the event. It's definitely tricky from a band perspective to try and get folks in the band to feel comfortable to do, give their 100% on stage. But I agree with the safety aspect. How are things in Kalamazoo, Val? I was just there for like a second.
Yeah.
I saw people walking around, just kind of a mix of like, college people who were like, it's nothing's different. And then other people who were, trying to avoid any person on the sidewalk. But
Right. Yeah. So, as far as current state, or do you want me to discuss a little bit about when it hit, what it felt like? Sorry.
Yeah. Oh,
I can
sorry.
go
I should
both
have
ways.
clarified.
No, I can go both ways
Yeah.
if you want me to. So
Sure. Yeah. A little about, when it hit.
okay,
And
when it hit
yeah.
to current. How about that?
Sure.
So not to say like we've all just this year has just been awful for everybody. But for our company specifically, our biggest day of the year is Oberon Day, which is a week after this hit. So we were in the middle of preparations. We were doing all these things. And also our garden series gets announced the first week of April, right? So it's like, I was just wrapping that up, sewing it up, had like one more that was kind of like on the fence that I needed to confirm. And meanwhile, Proto Barter was supposed to play the back room on Friday, and their agent kept checking in, and I was like, "We're good, we're good, and we're gonna be great. I can't wait." And then I had to give them a call the day before the show and say, "Oh, we're shutting down." So it was like almost hit like a freight train when it did hit. And I canceled like 30 shows in one day. But it kind of became this thing where we were rescheduling a lot, like you'd spoken to, Brendan, and we were, in the process of cycling through the third or fourth time rescheduling this show, and we are all like, okay, we need to pause and wait a little bit till we even feel comfortable rescheduling. So, just from a personal perspective, like probably was like the worst time for us. Like there is some statistic, I don't know the exact number of amount of Oberon barrels that were out in the country that had to be sent back because all the bars shut down. and then they tried to donate it to be used for hand sanitizer, right? Because like it's not going to be sold, it's going to go out. And that was a process. It was like, it was just like everything we tried to do just ended up not like working. So it's been, hard, right? Because I feel like I go in every day and I have like my inbox is exciting, like I get to do these cool, fun things for a living. And like, not all excitement. There's bummers, but there is some excitement every day. And now it's just kind of gone to the point where it's like, all right, we're just going to get through this next day. I don't know. I think I might have like a show I rescheduled 5 times, might be my record. Yeah. And for us right now, it's kind of, this is the problem we run into. We're really, really lucky and blessed that everybody that worked on our team found jobs in the brewery, right? They were offered a full-time job. But that means I need a full slate of shows to get them back for it to be fair for them, right? So like I can't open back up with 2 shows in a month and say, sorry, I'm taking you from a full-time job, to this, like that doesn't feel right either. So for me, it's to the point where, yes, that it's like we almost went to 4.5, right? We didn't like go to 5, we're not in 4. 20% of our capacity isn't really something that, we're able to do. And also we're not going to have enough shows for it to make it worthwhile to everybody. And what does going to a show right now feel like, right? How does that feel ethically? So that's where we're stuck. When we talk about it all the time, when are we going to feel good encouraging people and putting money behind advertising to get them to a show? We're not sure. Right now, it doesn't feel so good, right? So, yes, and I was just like everybody, 2 months, this is going to be great. We're going to just like wipe the schedule clean and go, 2 months going to come back. But that's unfortunately not looking anywhere near, we're looking at a full year, at this point of, I don't know, hopefully we'll be open sooner. Hopefully we'll be back sooner, but we'll just have to wait and see. So
yeah,
that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. I feel when you mentioned, getting people invested in wanting to even just advertise for an event, I thought about the few shows. I think, Earth Radio's had 6 shows. We had a show kind of start up in July, and then we've had like 1 or 2 a month outdoors, like very much in our control. But there was always that thing of, okay, if it doesn't have a cap, we don't really want to advertise it so publicly that, it starts to overwhelm the capacity of this kind of DIY event. Like if we're playing a backyard fundraiser, we don't want like 150 people showing up.
Right.
But we also want people to turn out to like support the bands and support the artists. So it's been an interesting like juggling like on the grassroots level of how do we communicate that there's stuff happening that we know people will be interested in, but also cultivate an environment where people show up and they're not immediately off put and feel unsafe.
Or like the doomsday scenario, right? That our event somehow becomes a super spreader event, right? And then we're responsible for telling people that they should have come, right? Like that. I just think about that all the time. Like, how do you like sleep at night? Right? If that happens, and that's what you're saying. Like, too many people. Like when in this industry would ever too many people be a bad thing, right? So now we're like at that moment where it's like, usually you're like, let's sell this place out. And I was like, let's.
Yeah, we were making the joke with Rake Beer set a cap at Rake Beer Project in Muskegon. They set a cap for the patio show at 40. And we were making the joke like, oh yeah, we could totally like keep it under 50. We could keep it under 30. Like we could bring 15 people like socially distanced far away from each other. But yeah, I'm wondering because I also do sound at Founders, and I know, the last kind of regular communication I had with you, Luke, was back in I think early May. About like just things and like even then it was like, okay, we're still unsure, they're furloughing us, and so I'm wondering how that looks on your end.
Man, so it's been a long and fruitful summer for my garden. I'm also got engaged, which is awesome. So
congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow.
So kind of it's been nice to be able to focus on some of those things and take the time to do it right. But just like everybody else, I have those horror stories of, I just remember on the 13th, it was Friday the 13th when it happened, and we had a band come in, they were on their way. We actually ended up paying them half anyway, just because it was like the right thing to do, because we didn't know kind of why we were even shutting down. And 5 p.m. the closing time, and I was walking out with some of my stuff, and I had a bunch of crap in my arms, and our research brewer looked at me and he goes, "What are you doing, man? We'll be back tomorrow." And I go, "That's what everyone in Chernobyl said." And so I'm glad that I grabbed everything I had my computer and whatnot. But so for the first 2 months, it was just the same deal: rescheduling, trying to figure out what's going on. We were starting the process of finalizing our posters and whatnot for Founders Fest. I had my lineups locked in, so that's kind of my biggest thing for me personally. KBS had just went year round. I mean, everything was just about to. I mean, things were really going well. And then the summer, we're really starting to develop more events as well. So it was going to be a fun summer to have like a larger premiere event that had never been debuted every single month, along with our regular schedule of shows. We had our Harvest Party, which had been coming up this weekend, with the Accidentals headlining again, which would have been sweet. And had New Year's going on, just so many things. And so for those first 2 months, it was just kind of figure out what we can do, how I can still represent us within the community. So I had a lot of, on top of all this, we have there's so many conversations going on in the world right now on so many different topics, and a lot of them aren't pleasant. And to have that all coming together into this one time frame has just been nuts. Also trying to so when we weren't able to do shows, I was sort of went into community-based stuff, and then once May 3rd hit, I was furloughed. So at that point, I'm not able to speak technically on behalf of the company, and the email gets shut down. So people were getting just kind of the bounce back email like, "Hey, check back in when things happen." I've been in contact with some of the executives, so things are going well for the business as a whole, but there's been some restructuring, and there's just like any large entity, it gets big, and then when times like this happen, you pare down. And I know that the furloughed team is basically just our sound team right now and our entertainment team. So that's been tough. Summer was long, as I mentioned before, but things are going okay. I've actually pivoted into my other career, which is in the construction area. So I'm actually doing quality control and safety. So that's an interesting thing to talk about in these times. The ability to pivot and to always make sure that you have something else to fall back on when things are happening. But I did speak with Brad, our CPO, the other day, and he's going to continue to check in, and when we can do things that are meaningful, we're going to do them. I was promised it's going to happen again, and then I'll be the person they call when it's time to start happening again. So that'll start rolling downhill from there, and then everybody over here in the chat section will get their calls as well, and it'll start going out from there. It saddens me that it's taken so long for me to see all 5 of us in a virtual room like this, and then just like we were saying earlier, like, how do you just truthfully get people like there's all these folks here watching us, and I'm like, man, we could be in a room having a true meaningful discussion,
Right?
but my friend Jeremy just came down with COVID, so it's just like, what do you do these days? So that's kind of where I'm at, looking to figure out like what the new reality is going to be. For me personally, live music is something that is just that it's live, and it's something that needs to be experienced in person. I've enjoyed a lot of streams, a lot of the rehash and remixes of videos and all that kind of stuff, but I really haven't seen it nailed yet, So I'm just trying to figure out what that is, how much that costs. There's been some talks about hotel concerts, all sorts of things, but even at that point, I'm like, I remember I had to throw our 20th anniversary show, 25th, I think, it was like right after the Las Vegas shooter. And I remember that feeling of being like, I'm going to bring people out here, and if something happens, like, I'm going to have to go on the news, and it's going to be, this is something that's heavy duty. And do you still want to encourage people to come out? And now that's kind of the way I feel right now. Like, I don't want to do that, and that's really scary, and it's sad because like instantly I'm like, oh, I want to have mom over, like, hey, like, I just got engaged, I want to have a big party, like I have 36 first cousins, that kind of stuff. But it's like, what do you do? So so it's just kind of in that area. So I guess that's an interesting perspective for me. And I'll pass the mic.
It's definitely I was thinking back to how busy January and February was for me, and I was, mainly in Ludington. So I only really got to, I think I played the Michigan birthday party. That was my last like founder show. And then I think the last show I worked might have been in December. I was trying to think, like, when was the last, like, when I like got to founders, clocked in and got everything set up, like working with Steve or you or Adam or any of the folks, Melinda. So yeah, definitely, like, it after a couple months of like that initial quarantine, you start to be like, oh yeah, this wasn't like normal. Where are all my friends?
And even now, I mean, our stage is sitting there, tap room's open. I mean, but it's tough to get in. There's lines. There's certain ways that everything needs to happen, and we operated outside of the typical hours, of the tap room for the most part. It was like till 9-10 o'clock was when everyone was drinking beers, having sandwiches, and then we turned on the music. And now they're just open till like 9, 10, 11 o'clock some nights, and it just doesn't even really make it. I mean, man, it's just such a weird time. So yeah, it's tough. But I get excited about bringing people back together, and it's something that I just hope that it happens almost with less of a butterfly valve effect but more of a slow burn effect, because I just get afraid of everyone running out the door as fast as they can to try and from the disease, and then also just driving, all that kind of stuff. It's like I've almost become like extremely nervous. Like I want to nerf the world now and make everyone super safe. It's weird.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure you have a lot of things to say as well. Lara? I almost said Laura.
It's actually Laura. You're right on. good.
All right.
It's
My
good.
instinct was right.
Yeah. Man, this is a depressing panel. I'm sorry, everyone.
We'll get to
Let me
good
try
things.
to bring
I swear.
I'll try to bring some levity. I don't know.
Yeah.
Jim was on vacation when this whole thing went down. I remember that Thursday like no other. And then Friday actually wasn't as bad. That's what I thought was hilarious, was that Friday the 13th was much less scary than Thursday the 12th for us. We had people on the road that weekend, and like you said, one of them was gonna play in West Virginia, and they hadn't closed down yet. And one of the venues actually told me that they weren't allowed back if they didn't come and play that weekend. And I said, this is a global pandemic, right? And they were like, well, our school's not shut down. And I was like, that seems a little short-sighted. And then the next day, the school did shut down, and I still haven't asked that person whether the band is allowed back or not. I just haven't gone there quite yet. No, it was a very interesting couple days, and Jim did not get a very good vacation. I can say that much. We started a Zoom meet every week immediately following the first week of this craziness to just keep our artists together, talking to each other. And it was something that we could do for them because, looking at what an agent is, being a musician, I feel like I know both sides of this thing. I've gone out and played all of these places. And then I now book them, and I know what it's like to be a musician. I know what it's like to go on the road. I know how it feels. And to have that all taken away from our artists, we as booking agents wanted to do whatever we could for our artists, and we continue to do that. We still do it every week. But it has just completely redefined what we do. And I always joke with my friends, I don't know whether I'm unemployed or not, because if unemployed means I'm not working, then I'm employed. But if unemployed is like not making money, then I'm certainly not employed right now. Because we're at Fleming, we pivoted very quickly to the virtual shows because I really did see this, unfortunately, as something that was going to stick around for a long time. But I really do see the ramifications of this virus being something that is going to affect certain populations for many, many years. Regardless of whether these rooms are open, it's about whether people feel safe going in them, and exactly like what you said, whether you feel safe advertising for people to come in. And it was the same as our artists, because our artists don't want to be those people. One of our artists actually divulged privately to us on a call once that she did have a fan that contracted COVID at one of her concerts. And it was right when this hit, she chose to play a couple more dates. And one of those dates, one of her fans got it. Now they didn't die, so that's great, but they suffered. And she said it was one of the worst things that she had ever experienced, knowing that happened because of her in a way. And a lot of our artists are hitting that. They don't want to be that person, just like the venues don't want to be that venue. Our artists don't want to be the artist. And we completely understand and respect that. I mean, at Fleming, we're very artist driven. And that's one of the reasons that I joined it, because I find that that's the only reason to do booking, honestly, as far as I'm concerned, is for the artists. And for the people that they help with their music and their message. But we just stand behind our artists. And what's strange is, we also stand behind the artists that want to go play right now. I completely understand bands that aren't quarantined together feeling like they're completely lost, and that might lead them to want to go out and risk it and play a show. And I am really making sure that I do not judge those bands for wanting to go out and play, for wanting to try this stuff, at the same instant that I'm making sure that I'm representing the artists that do not want to go out and play. If they're getting opportunities emailed, I have to, write back and say the artist doesn't feel comfortable playing these shows. So it is a very different job description right now than what we normally do and will do again. But yeah, I see a lot of people saying things that, yes, we have a virtual roster. So we just decided to start looking into the virtual realm. Because as I was saying before, I really feel like this is going to be years and years before certain populations feel comfortable going out. I was pregnant over the course of the year, and I literally didn't even go get groceries from March until birth and like a little after. I even now have not gone into like a legitimate store, maybe once or twice. And we currently live in Ontario, actually. Fleming is based in Ann Arbor, but we live across the river in Canada. So it's, we only have like 3 cases a day in our general area, and I'm still not going into stores. So I can't imagine, first of all, I can't imagine being in the States. It's got to be so scary, just even across the river there for you guys. But even then, people aren't taking chances over here, and I don't see them taking chances anytime soon, even if the places are open, even if there are masks, even if all of that. So we're looking into all the virtual stuff. You're exactly right. Live music is live music, and it's not going to be replaced. So we're just trying to figure out what we can do that's meaningful until live music returns. And I think direct to artist and direct to fan via virtual whatever is one of the things that we're trying to hone in on. We love Crowdcast. I like that you're using this, because we've used a lot of different platforms, and we are liking Crowdcast the most right now, because of the chat function, because of being able to go direct to fan. But yeah, we're trying to focus on that. Jeff Daniels has done a ton of Crowdcast shows, and we've been partnering with venues and cutting them in on the ticket sales to help keep them buoyed in this too. Because I hope we're going to talk about this, but one of the things that I think the United States is just terribly, I don't even know. I'm a U.S. citizen, by the way. I'm not Canadian, but living over here, there's a very different perspective. No, your government is just failing.
Blowing it, yeah.
The music population. I don't understand how any venue is still operating. I don't understand how any artist is still putting food on the table. I don't get it, except exactly what Luke said. He's doing construction. I get really emotional about that, because I just don't understand how the music industry is going to continue. And one of the things that we're trying to do at Fleming is partnering with these venues, with these virtual shows, to get even pennies to them during this time. But it's just drops in the bucket. It's not operating costs by any means for these virtual shows. So not to pivot away from that, but yeah, I'm really interested in hearing how the venues are feeling, and what Michigan is doing in particular, but also what the government is doing for music, and what we think we can do actively to make our voices heard and make sure that these places get funding, so we have something on the other side of this.
Yeah, I'm curious too, because I did see, and I shared, because I saw that pretty soon after things started shutting down, there was the National Independent Venue Association got formed, and now there's kind of a specific campaign for, say, Michigan stages. So I'm not sure, because on the receiving end of it all, it's like, okay, I shared the hashtag, but it's like, and I did the pre-written letter to, I think it was like Debbie Stabenow or something. But yeah, I'm curious too if there's anyone that might have info or insight into that association, or what people could do. Any sort of, I don't know.
I've been seeing the guys at the intersection are extremely involved in it, and I think what's interesting about all of us is that our business is propped up by another, business as well.
Exactly.
So much respect to Bells for bringing Val's entire team on in a full-time position like that in a different part of the brewery. And I'm not sure what you guys got going on down there in Benton Harbor, but that's I'd be very interested to talk to somebody trying to run their own venue right now, because I don't even know what you would do.
Exactly. Yeah. Go ahead, Val.
So Neva was it. So we both, the intersection and Bells, we use the same ticketing company, eTix. They're one of the only independent ticketing companies in the country. And the people who formed NEVA actually met at their conference last year. Like I was at the brewery table and they were at the indie rock table. So the statistic is 90% of independent venues will be closing without federal funding, which granted, we're so lucky because we do have these other facets of business that support us. But my routings are going to be awful in the back room if 90%, what's a band at a 500 cap level? Where are they going to go if 90% of the Live Nation rooms don't cater to that cap? So I might be okay in the garden, but my backroom business is going to be gone if Congress doesn't act. So there's two main organizations, the National Independent Venue Association and NITO, the National Independent Talent Organization, which is founded by like one of my favorite people I ever get to talk to on the phone, but I never do because he was Frank Riley out of Pyro Touring, which he's just been doing this forever, and just sort of saw what the future was looking like. So they're lobbying Congress. They've hired lobbyists, and that's what their organization is doing. And, I'll get little glimpses from friends who are very involved and who have a venue only side where they've been completely shut down, that they're feeling confident, but also it's just not looking great. It's not looking like that relief is coming anytime soon. And I'm worried. I ran a club in Omaha for numerous years, and I'm kind of concerned. I don't know if they'll be able to come out of this. Because a regular venue, their two most important, biggest expenses are rent and insurance, right? And when you can't make enough money to even come close to covering those, and you can't take PPP loans because why pay your staff? What are they going to do? And you don't qualify for those. It's a mess. I mean, it looks like they're going to confirm a Supreme Court justice, but not, do anything on COVID relief. And that's really a hard pill to swallow, I mean, I'm thinking about that, what you said, Luke, like, this is the only thing I've done, right? I mean, and so to me, it's hard to think about like, oh man, this job I love so much, what's it going to look like, even if it does come back, if those venues do close? So they're working really hard. They're, it's blood, sweat, and tears. And, members are, gathering as much funds as they can for those that can. But, I'm not sure what that's going to look like, And yes, we do realize how lucky we are. But, the funny other side of this is when we talk to the team members, the sound engineers who are now canning beer, which they're very grateful for. They're like, we will never complain again about a late loadout. We will never complain about, like, I love that now about my, so it just gives like this really interesting perspective for everybody. But yeah, I'm incredibly scared that a lot of these, I've talked to my friends who are, some clubs are open in Nebraska where I was for a while, and they feel even weird about that. They're like pivoting a lot to comedy, right? Because it's more controlled seating, less artists, all that, less a number of crews. But yeah, it's extremely stressing, and there are some clubs that have already closed, and I'm really hopeful, but it's kind of hard to retain hope right now with currently what's happening. So
yeah,
but I would look up both their mission statements. They're awesome. Get involved. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I shared the link for the for NEVA, and what was NITO you said?
NITO is the National Independent Talent Organization. So NITO,
okay.
And that is booking agencies and like artists can be associate members, but it was founded by High Road, Madison House. I'm going to miss a couple of them, but I think 4 booking agencies came together, like sort of realizing, all right, NEVA is, they almost joined forces, but then they kind of realized they had a little bit more complex needs, right? Whereas like they can sustain, but not indefinitely, right? So it's like we can sustain our business, but we can't sustain this without any income for, as long as it's probably going to be. But
yeah, and I appreciate all these comments because it's good to kind of peek behind the curtain a little bit and see like as back in the before times, we'll call it.
Right. Yeah.
Like people, trying to reach out, trying to do the booking grind, trying to see these venues, and sometimes you think it's just like you're hitting a physical wall, but it is, teams of people restructuring, moving things around. Everything's constantly in flux. So yeah, to hear these stories is good to, remind people that we're all trying to support each other, and we're all trying to, just do what we can. And, kind of, it's weird to try and pivot to like booking, but that's what this is. It's booking practices. I wanted to ask, especially, some best practices in a way that, in an ideal situation, like these are the things you do to put together like a compelling, almost like a pitch every time you're sending an email or sending out your band or your band's info, what you guys do. I'm curious what you guys look for, because there is, mountains of emails probably that you could very easily just shuffle away if something's not catching your eye. But then at the same time, it is a combination of patience, persistence, but not, I don't know. Like, I feel like for me as an artist, it's like trying not to be that person who's constantly emailing, constantly trying to call, but also wanting to, every couple weeks be like, hey, I'm just checking in, seeing what's happening. So if you have any info on some, let's say, best practices overall for booking, what would you all recommend?
Well, I can start since I write most of those emails for my artists, right?
Oh yeah. Good
I can tell you what works for most people. No, and you guys can tell me if I'm way off base or not. How about that? Let's hope I'm good at my job. Let's see. A lot of times the music has to make sense for the venue, right? A lot of artists. I mean, let's be honest. And I'm going to speak from the before times and the now times. From the before times, you've got to be looking at a venue that is the correct size for your band. Especially from now until who knows, I'm assuming, and you guys can back me up on this, they're going to want to see some tour history, some hard numbers in that area, because these venues are not going to be able to take any chances on not having a full room if they've got a full staff, because they're coming out of this, I'm sure, with absolutely no budget. And one missed show could be devastating for a smaller, under 500 cap place. So make sure when you're writing, you've looked up how many seats are in that place and you are confident that you can bring the people out to that. Of course, it's on the venue as well to make sure that it's advertised, that they're trying to get the community out to see you. But these days, the reality of the situation is that you should be bringing a lot of your fan base, or that's going to be what's expected. I'll tell a really funny story quickly. A lot of these venues that we're pairing with, when we're doing the virtual shows, the way that we are in a way geogating, but not really, is that the artist is not doing a lot of the promotion, not even putting them publicly. It is on the venues to promote to their email lists, to promote to their socials, and get their fan base, their customers driven to these virtual shows. And it has been very eye-opening to see which venues have been good at that and which venues have been absolutely deer in the headlights about how to actually get their people engaged, which I just thought was funny. We were kind of expecting that, but it was very interesting because some of the venues we thought would be bang up at it are not. And then some of venues we didn't have a lot of hope for have been amazing. So it really is going to be on the artist to make sure that you're bringing out your folks, your fans. What I would say to the artists right now that are sitting with a studio setup where they are able to play music, reach out to those venues right now and see if they want to pair for a live stream, because right now they have the time. And that is a way to get fans that will come to the live shows. If you reach out to the venues that you want to play now and see if you can do a live stream setup and see if you can get your fans to watch that and know that you might be coming to that, that's going to help you a lot in the after times. That's like the biggest thing that I would say. Make sure that you route yourself properly. Make sure that you're not giving yourself insane 12-hour drives between things. The way that I normally write a booking inquiry is a very small snippet. Make sure that you're including videos, right? The venues like YouTube videos are the best because you're going to take a look at that, or Spotify or your Facebook page. The links are really important. It gives a really quick snapshot of where you are, what your music is like, what you've done with advertising and promotion. So that really helps the venue understand what they would be getting themselves into for that. And then as far as follow-up is concerned, I mean, half my job is following up, because you're right. These venues get how many? Let's talk about before times, how many inquiries. So it's about relationships, but it's also about following up. It absolutely is. My rule is no more than once a week, because that's just a little annoying. And you guys can tell me if I'm wrong about that, but that's my personal rule. I never write more than one email a week.
Wow, that's very kind. I would say, I think all the points that you nailed, that's perfect. All that stuff is exactly what I'm looking for. It's just, hey, how are you doing? It's just like every phone call, you got a hi, hello, what's going on? It's like at some point, you're doing fine, what's up? I used to listen to Howard Stern all the time, and like halfway through the show, eventually he'd just be like, okay, what do you want to say? Like, let's go. So earlier in the morning is a good time sometimes, it seems. Since it seems like a lot of my day would always start 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. So a little more chipper and not worn down at that point. So there's maybe a hot tip right there for some venues who might operate a business that isn't so nighttime oriented. Yeah, just a nice hi, how you doing? I like a great video, like right off the bat too, and then something about the band, Facebook, all the usual stuff. It seems like this is all the stuff that is pretty obvious out there, but I'm surprised at how often it doesn't happen. The worst email to send is, hey, I'd like to ask you a few questions, or to hit somebody up in a professional way in a non-professional manner. So I've spoken with folks on this panel in a non-professional manner, but we had a prior professional, relationship, and the outreach was, hey, I'm so-and-so from this particular area. Do you remember me? Obviously, yes. I need some answers about this because my professional email is completely shut down right now. So, going from running and gunning 8,000 person, hopefully, festival to a blank wall because no one else answers those emails at Founders is a difficult thing to keep relationships going. And to give everyone an idea of how busy an inbox can be, and I don't know if I can speak for everyone else, but I had, out of 600 people at Founders, what I was told by the IT team, the #1 most visited inbox in the company. I did deal with a lot of ticketing stuff too, so you do just get a lot during the course of the day. So repetition is great, persistence is good, annoyance is not. I only had to call our security team on one person and threaten to have the cops called on them, because it just got to a point where it was just like, all right, I'm starting to get a little bit nervous for myself. But I think just kind of being kind and just realizing that, like, we're just people, like, trying to get through a day the same way. And if it's just like, hey, what's up? Or trying to find something that maybe you both can agree on or both like, or someone that is a great way to just drop something like, hey, this person recommended me. I know that the band that used to manage Four Finger Five, not sure if it actually worked, but we sent pizza to Madison House way back in the day in order to hopefully get on the first Rothbury, and we did. But we had called them up and we were like, hey, what kind of pizza do you guys like? And they're like, why would you ask that? And this is when there wasn't that many people in the office. And I was like, don't worry about it. And then 15 pizzas showed up. It was like the last few bucks that we had, but I'm not saying that you need to send me pizzas or anything like that, but, you know, common ground, everyone likes pizza. Things like that are a great way to just kind of grease the wheels a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say
Bragging always works.
realistic persistence, right? So like also understanding when a no is a no is not I say this like, and I think it's more true now, like 90% of my job is saying no, right? And just like how to do it with kindness and empathy and respect for them, but also like understanding like you're not going to get anything out of this either, right? So like that to me, I think about this time as like valuable of, okay, so like strategize for artists. What do you want? How do you want to come back? Right? Spend some time building your fan base. You know, for people that would, you know, send me these show inquiries but don't have a web presence. Now is the time to start building that web presence and to start getting some engagement. But I think what everybody touched on is so true. I always found it more appealing to myself when they would have like sort of pair up with a band that they knew they did really well with, and they said, here, I'm going to present this sort of like these two acts to you as a together thing. That to me just has a little more weight, knowing, okay, they've had all this thought about it. They're coming into it with this perspective of, I feel like this is going to do well. But what you're saying, Laura, is so true. Like I'm nervous for my first miss, man, when we come back. It's not going to feel good. I'm going to feel like I let a lot of people down. And how it was always a pressure, right? Thing, right? Like we're professional gamblers, you know, in a way there's an element to it that is that, but you know, there's slightly more pressure probably put on myself by me, not by any external sources, to perform at high levels to justify entertainment, right? To say, yes, we're worth it. We're worth keeping around, right? And it's me. It's not company driven. It's me. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. But I would really say working on those things now to present a really professional front and thinking about how you're going to come back and how things that maybe went wrong with past shows and how you do those things differently. My inbox is open for questions. I'm always super happy to talk to people about what, you know, and give some honest feedback about what maybe went, you know, if they asked me, I would tell them honestly what maybe I could see. It could be wrong. I could be wrong. But that to me, I think is hopefully a way forward, and also just to be really patient with us. You know, we did some projections for when we think we're going to come back, and we're starting at like 50% of the shows that we did, and then going to build from there, and are hoping by the end of our first calendar year back to be somewhat back. But that's sort of where we're comfortable at the beginning, right? Just because it's going to kind of be a rebirth in a way, you know? So.
Yeah, I think that from what I heard, the best hope is going to be early spring for us, you know, and we in particular enjoyed having that blend of the venue and the restaurant. So it was very easy for us to take a gamble, and, you know, while a miss is a miss and it sucks. And if any artist thinks that a bad show is tough for you, think about the person who had to justify spending the money on it too. So it can be really tough sometimes out there. I mean, just to be something I started thinking about in the before times was how if you're the promoter, you're not quite putting on the show because it's kind of about everyone in the building to put it on, and you're not performing, and you can't really be a fan because you also have to make sure that everything runs well. So it was a unique position to be in. So another great way to kind of is just to maybe spend some time and find those people when you're at a show and just say hi to them and see the person that's running around and stop them for a second and be like, what's up? How you doing? What's going on? I'm from this place of part of the world or something like that. But I don't know if I kind of took things off track there a little bit, but
well, I just wanted to say quickly, because Jakey had this comment and I wanted to talk about it, because we do have some provocative, controversial artists on our roster. That what I would say specifically is just look at the other artists that are playing at that venue. No, some venues love provocative bands. They want the controversial artists. but look at the other people that are playing and don't waste your time reaching out to a place that has a bunch of cover bands if you're going to play all of your singer-songwriter acoustic stuff. It's not gonna make sense. And I know that this sounds kind of harsh, and I think it's being an artist myself, then booking my own band, and then being an agent. What I want to say is that a lot of artists feel like if they just get the right venue, then they're going to have the right people. That may have been the case. I talked to Jim a lot about this, and we come from two different generations of booking, Jim Fleming, that is. And he always he feels so bad about right now because, back in the day or whatever, it was closer to that. But now with the internet, with the amount of choice that's out there, if you're playing, it's not the venue, it's you. You could play at whatever venue. Sometimes the venue and you create synergy, that's good. But it's not just the venue that's going to make a show. And so knowing in reality what you are capable of bringing is just the reality. I don't want to be harsh at all, but finding the space that works for you and it does create that synergy is so, so important, because if it's a small 35 or 50 cap place and you can sell that out and everyone has like a wonderful time and nobody gets COVID, because I'm talking about when we have a vaccine and everything is lovely, then that is going to make your night. That is going to be a better night for you than playing a 200 cap place or a 300 cap place and only having those 50 people there. So what I've found from being in the place of a musician and now being in the place of an agent is finding the venue that fits for you is the most important part of this for you. So do your time, nerd out, look at all these different venues, see what other artists are playing. I constantly have artists that I keep track of that are not on our roster to look to see what venues they're playing that are similar to my artists, so that I can make sure that I'm keeping up with all the cool new places, all the places that aren't doing much anymore, places that have pivoted, which is going to be huge. This playing field is just going to be completely different when we come out of this. So just look at it. I don't mean to depress anyone or sound really harsh when I'm saying that it's on you to bring your own people, but just know who your people are, know how many people roundabouts you have, and find that venue that's going to be a good fit for you, because then it's happy for everybody. And those are some of the best places. Some of my best shows have been in 50 cap or smaller places, and I loved them.
Yeah, I always say it's not, I'm not telling you no because I don't want you to have a successful show. I'm telling you no because I want you to have a successful show, and that hopefully we can get to the point where it makes sense for you to have a successful show here. So
yeah, it totally makes sense. I don't know if you had anything to add to that, Brandon, being at the livery, because you've taken at least, in Earth Radio's budding time, kind of figuring out what we were as a band. Like we played the livery, and it felt like a very oh cool. We're kind of like do they know like we play music? Like, is it okay that we change genres? Is that okay?
Yeah, we're a little different dynamic than I would say Founders or Bells are, in that we do cater to a lot more of the upstart band crowd and kind of cutting your teeth, and we are the stage that they would play probably before they would go to Bells or Founders for some high profile gigs. So we get lots of emails from those upstart bands, and kind of getting back to what bands should or shouldn't put in the emails. I would agree with easy accessible links and some videos and web presence. That's 100% of the game these days. Subject line. A subject line is huge. I almost don't even open the email anymore if there's no subject, because it'll just get lost in the shuffle, even if I do.
Right.
So yeah, I've kind of had to work with some bands that maybe don't have as strong as a web presence, but they do have a good local presence, and that actually means a lot to us at Delivery and our community, is being able to draw some of that local crowd and then branch out to that. I'm not expecting to take the Kalamazoo or the Grand Rapids crowd on a Friday night and bring them down to Benton Harbor. But there's a lot of towns in between those areas where they can choose to go to the city. They choose to come to our small spot, and we try to, cater to not necessarily an underground unknown thing, but it's kind of it's all original music. It's, the artists that are, cutting their teeth and wanting to make it. And then we can balance that calendar out with some of the national headlining acts that come through, the Corey Wongs or Traveling McCurries that we can kind of get from, Bells and Founders on a good weekend that seems to make sense, because I am just like bands are looking at what other venues bands are playing. As a venue, I'm looking at what other venues bands are playing too, to see if it kind of fits into our zone. So even though a date on my calendar may theoretically be open, it's not really open because I'm targeting a very specific, genre or act or size of an act in terms of budget as well. So there's a lot that goes into play in our calendar. So it's not that maybe, the band isn't good enough to play here. It's just the timing isn't going to work out. I'm not going to put 5 reggae bands in a row. It's going to be mixed up. We're going to hit all the different chords and try to bring in a different crowd each week. So, I hope bands aren't getting discouraged because our calendar doesn't always allow for every, request coming in. So, it's a bit of a juggling act. And I guess touching on some of the digital formats and kind of where we're looking to go moving forward. And I think Luke kind of asked the $1 million question. It's like, how do we do a digital concert experience and how much is it going to cost? And I think that's kind of what we're wrestling with at Delivery here. We do want to be a venue that's going to open our stage up and our sound up. Bands can come in. Currently, we're not open on Mondays. So that's kind of what we're targeting is Monday when we're closed. There's no other staff. We can actually do the social distance thing, keep everyone safe, but then also offer bands something that's bigger than just their living room or their basement, which are great for intimate performances, but sometimes, taking that virtual step to a higher level, a more professional level is necessary. And I do see that being, with another year or more of this virtual realm, I think that there is a total value in being able to have professional quality material to present your band, whether it's a new album release, you want to just get like 3 singles cut, or you want to do a warts and all live stream type of a deal. So we want to kind of, explore the costs and the realms of possibility to kind of open our doors to bands to kind of come in and use our stage as a live studio where the band will walk away kind of owning that product. And then Delivery can kind of generate content and promotion, because right now my job as a booking agent is dwindled down and my job as a promotion marketing guy is growing. And so we're kind of looking to the future on how to sell more beer and sell more food, since we are a brewery brew pub and kind of a venue second. So, there's a whole synergy amongst our own business before we can kind of open things up to more business. But right now, we're just finding a way to get involved and interact with the community and try to keep ourselves in the light, keep the artist in the light without, breaking our bank and without the artist, overextending themselves to walk away with $0 for, this incredible night's work. So, there's got to be a two-way street. So.
Yeah. I was speaking to some folks at the beginning of this and just reaching out to different agents and people who represent large groups of artists that we all are familiar with. And they were just saying how little their money there was in the beginning for the streaming. And I'm curious if anybody has kind of seen that go up. And it sounds like, Laura, you would probably have the best experience with that. And is this something that, I guess, since where I'm booking, this is really the only way to get it? And it sounds like you probably have an idea how to get it with some cash.
Well,
or at least, the closest thing you can get to it, is there a way to put a little bit of food on the table while operating virtually right now? I know for Founders, it was something that we were doing the virtual tip jar and that kind of stuff, and it was generating what it was generating. We didn't ask, and we didn't want to know what it was doing for people, but people continued to want to do it. I never want to pay for exposure. I never want to just use exposure for payment, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and that's where it started to get to be a little bit wonky for us. But as long as folks reached out to us to want to do it, we were interested in letting that happen. And then quickly, I'll just say my personal email is lukemsass@gmail.com. If anybody wants to reach out, I can connect you to the person who is handling some of those live streams right now. She just has a very long last name, so I can get that to you. You can find me on Facebook, whatever. I'm very easy to find. Just reach out and I'll send you her information. She can connect you guys to that information. So back to the original question, how do you make the virtual streaming work, Laura?
We did a lot of we have like, so for instance, the Accidentals, have been doing amazing live streams since the beginning. They're all super genius, tech oriented, amazing people. Of course, Sav like wrote a 23-page paper on OBS, which is a software that you use for streaming. She's amazing. We made sure that we were addressing how to create a good studio setup, how to use the different platforms out there on our weekly calls for anybody that was interested. We did see that, and we've been seeing this now. I definitely understood that the donations weren't going to last forever. I mean, I'm gonna be really frank. Even with the ticketed stuff that we've done on Crowdcast, we're seeing dwindling results because the economy is about to collapse. I don't really know what else to do about that. Americans don't have money in their pockets. And so regardless of whether it's a donation or whether it's a ticket or whatever, if they don't have money in their wallets, they can't give it to you. And that's what we're seeing. I don't know what else to do about that except for petition the government. Like, I can't say enough that I think the only thing that's going to save the industry at all, including artists and venues and agencies, is getting the government to help, because there is no safe and healthy way to continue with any type of music right now, especially if nobody can pay for it. This is an ecosystem that is in extreme danger in a number of different places. There's not just one part of the ecosystem that's collapsing. Everything is, including our fans being able to pay to see us and support us, because that's what they're doing. Of course, they're coming for a live experience, but they also understand that they're supporting the artist and supporting the venue when they go. And if they don't have that money to support, there's nothing that we can do to create that money. It's just not there. So yes, like for instance, Jeff Daniels shows have been doing really well, but on the whole, we've just been seeing less attendance, and I think it is solely because people do not have the money to pay for it. Crowdcast does a really nice sliding scale where you can choose what amount you want to pay. So it's kind of like a ticket, but it's kind of like a donation. I don't mean to be extremely dark, but a lot of our artists are doing a lot of different things, and all of them are dwindling. It doesn't matter whether it's a ticket or a donation or a suggested tip or whatever. The money is just not there. What I will say is what we found working great, Crowdcast, again, I'm not paid by them to say this. They're just seems to be the best platform so far that we like. They do have a sliding scale, so you can be cognizant of people's wallets and say, if you can pay $50, pay $50. If you can only pay $5, pay $5. I think protecting the value of an artist is important. Just asking artists to play for quote unquote exposure or free, we're not really in that game. Just because I don't think artists should be doing that. It is work. I don't see, plumbers haven't started going out and doing free plumbing. So our artists, we don't ask them to do free artistry either. But it really is about whether that money is there. This is considered, it's silly, but it's not considered something that is necessary, even though our art is obviously extremely necessary in these dark times. It's considered luxury and something that people can cut out of their budget. And so they're going to, if it's between art and food, they're going to eat. So we just need to make sure that there's money around that people can spend on art. That's as much as I can say. I know that probably didn't quite answer your question. But Crowdcast, get a great studio. Artists have been doing good virtual shows, but it just can't be saved without money.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
No, I mean, how do you keep, your end of the business in business, and how do you keep it's just this huge, what is it, Ouroboros with a snake eating its tail? It's like,
yeah.
We're
all in danger. Everybody's in danger. I just don't understand how any businesses. I mean, to be open, the reason that I'm still able to work is that we sold our house 2 years ago, and I've got savings. I mean, that's it. Like, if I had to be making money right now, I don't know what I'd do. I fortunately don't have to be right now. I don't know how much longer that's going to last, but I'm doing this literally. I mean, I always use the motto, I wouldn't do the job if I would only wait. What? It's too late now, guys. I'm sorry. I have a 2-month-old. I didn't sleep last night. I would only do a job if I would do it for free, which is always a motto that I choose to live by. But I do understand that the universe is testing me quite literally right now, because I am in fact doing this job for free and have been doing it for free since March-ish. And I will continue to do it for free because it's necessary, and I'm passionate about artists, and I'm passionate about keeping this going. But that's it. Everybody's in danger. We can't all do this for free. People need to eat, and they're not all in my current situation, Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, not to bring it all around again, but it's about the government supporting you guys. There are so many countries out there that have already passed these packages for the arts to not let them die, and the U.S. has not done it. So it's about trying to figure out how to do that. If there's one thing I can ask everybody on this call to do, it's to call your congressperson, figure it out. I mean, we've got to keep it together, and that's the way to do it. We can't just, as you said, keep eating the tail when there's no money infused into it, because it's just not possible.
Right.
Now, on a happy note, what is the coolest thing that everyone is seeing out there right now? Like, what is really like, all right, this is next level. These people are doing it correct. Money aside, and I think maybe that's the coolest part of it all is that it is still carrying on this long without a ton of money being infused in the scene. So it does show that it is about love. I mean, I don't play an instrument, probably rarely out of the group here. And in most situations, but I've always just enjoyed being around it. I've always felt like if I could help other people get to the next step in their dream, maybe then I can get to mine. And I'm not seeing a ton of stuff personally that's really blowing my mind or getting me really excited, only because I don't want to gather people, and I feel like it all falls apart at the bathrooms, and especially once the beers come out. So what are you guys seeing virtually? What can you guys tip me to? Can anybody fill up the chat thing here on the side with stuff that we should be looking for? Who's doing the right things to position themselves to get themselves into these venues that they've always wanted to be? I had a DJ named Mazerge coming through out of France, and he's been doing a lot of videos. He did one with watermelon recently where he's like playing little bits of kiwis and watermelon and stuff, and it kind of went viral. But that's kind of what I've been seeing is people just kind of locked in, playing with what they have around them for the most part. That's gathering my particular interest, but I'm also a fan of the one-man band. I'm going to go to you, Brandon, first. What are you seeing that's blowing your mind?
Man, Humphreys McGee, they never cease to amaze me. Those guys took their warehouse and created like a light and sound studio, played in the round, and then had a fishbowl in the middle of their performance space where fans were generating all of the ideas for where the next improv or next song selection was going to go. So I thought that was a really cool virtual yet live setting with the whole fan interaction. They did this prior to going to a soccer stadium and doing a drive-in outdoor show, which I did not attend, largely due to the potential bathroom situation.
Trucker bombs.
Yeah. Some of us are fortunate enough to have that option, right?
They make a shiwi.
I kind of, to be honest, myself got burnt out a little bit with the whole live stream thing, because when this all went down, everyone went digital so quickly, and it was just almost a bombardment of everyone live from their living room or basement and this and that. And I tuned in and I watched, and then it just kind of the shine wore off for me, and it took a little while for my excitement to kind of build back up to things. And so that Humphreys idea was one of the first things in a while that kind of got me like, oh wow, that's a really cool, unique way to do a live show without fans.
I think the one that got me that where I kind of tuned out a little bit was Michael McDonald doing live from his living room. And while I was like, fuck yeah, Michael McDonald live, and let's roll. And my man's getting a little bit old, so maybe Dutcher, production, that kind of stuff. There is a lot of
like sweatpants, and a greasy t-shirt.
Yeah, it was like just I was like, he could very easily have been playing at the fish and chips restaurant, sort of just kind of like eating while he's playing. It was endearing, but at the same time, I was like, this is too close.
Yeah, it's too much behind
That's
the curtain.
awesome.
How about you, Val?
Yeah.
What are you enjoying?
Oh, so, I agree with you. We did virtual stuff for the beginning, for the first couple months, and it all went really great. But then we also felt like we were just adding to the noise, right? Like nobody needs, let's let the bands sort of do it on their own stream. So what we watched, my husband and I would find watching the Tweeties. Did you see the Tweeties live streaming from their living room? Jeff and their two kids every night, and
I was
Sue, the
thinking
mom.
Tweety Bird for some reason when you were
Oh,
talking
no,
about
like
family. I was like, Tweety Bird.
Tweety from Wilco.
Okay,
and his kid, who are also wonderful musicians, and their mom, who was a booker and owned a club in Chicago called Lounge Acts that was legendary forever. They were so funny and, so talented. They would do a mix of songs and a mix of covers, but they would call the audience clients, and there would just be all these jokes. It was just the cutest. They had these like old IKEA curtains that everybody loves, so they made masks out of the IKEA curtain pattern, and it was just so effing, sweet. And they picked like really amazing music to play. They're all so talented. It was like the most lo-fi live stream ever, but it still kept us tuning in. We're like, what are they going to play this week? What are they going to do? It was about the art, and it was about their sort of dynamic together. And I just don't think you can ever like fake that level of authenticity. Obviously, they're a family, but they really like totally, they're like be in their pajamas a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
That was really great. I have kind of stopped the live. I caught Margot Price's live stream from the Ryman, and I thought that was awesome and totally cool. I love her. And then Bells, we're doing a couple like partnerships coming up this month, which I'm kind of excited about. We're doing the infamous String Dusters. They're going live from Boulder, and then the Mummies Halloween at the end of the month. So for us, we really want to help support these acts that have been through the back room and the garden and have been successful, and we know that our fan base is interested in them. So like, how can we drive revenue towards them so that we can have them back, and they can still be around. But yeah, the Tweety show was close to my heart. They stopped doing it, but the other positive, not to like totally pivot, but the other positive thing is I've seen, so back in I feel like I don't want to be like Jim, but I did ruin Jim's vacation too with a phone call. But but not to sound like this old person, but there's so many boutique agencies, right? Fleming's I would call a boutique, and I loved that, right? Because of the diversity of the agencies and the agents and the diversity of talent they would bring to the table, that they would maybe take a chance on representing somebody that a Paradigm's not going to represent. There are 2 new boutique agencies that have formed from Paradigm layoffs, and I am so excited. I know that sounds weird, but I'm so excited about this because it's going to diversify the market a little. There was two or three monoliths, and that was kind of it. Not to say there's necessarily anything wrong with that, but sometimes there are things wrong with that. So there's a mint booking agency with some of the like reggae acts and a couple other, and then there's a TBA booking agencies that have both just opened up from some of the layoffs at Paradigm. So yeah, that is kind of what I'm looking forward to, is seeing how we can pivot, and then also the government writing some people some checks. So.
And how about you, Laura? What have you seen?
Well, of course, all of our artists have been amazing, and all of them have the best live streams you could possibly ever want. I have to put that out there first. We do have a virtual roster. So if you want to go check out our virtual roster, it's flemingartists.com/virtual-shows. All of our artists are doing really cool streams. They have examples of them on the site. The Accidentals are doing a weekly, at least they were for a while. I can't remember whether they're on hiatus right now, but they're 3 for tea, which is amazing. What I find exactly what you guys are talking about, the live experiences that are the most fun are the ones that are very personal without being too personal. My personal favorite, and if he ever hears this and wants to come hang with me, that's fine, is Ben Folds. He was doing one from Australia because he got stuck there. And he, like, you know, he was doing it in his little studio apartment, and you could see that he like pushed his bed up against the wall, and like there was a box spring, you know, while he was doing this. And then in the middle, he breaks into trying to teach kids how to play piano and bang on the piano and rhythm. And he's just an insane genius. And so watching him work is really great. But like, for instance, Jeff Daniels, his shows, the biggest piece that people like the most, the show is great, but he does a question and answer period afterwards where he takes questions from the Crowdcast crowd. And of course that is astounding and great. And he is hilarious and has amazing stories. And so people come back night after night to look at that, to see the show, but really to check out the question and answer. So I'm finding these ways into the artists that you haven't seen before, a little excerpt into their lives that maybe would have been missed at a venue, is really fun. And yeah, but Ben Folds stopped doing his.
No, it's like everything that we liked. It's like went on his last episode and just stopped.
I know. And he has the same he bought the same digital piano that I have here, Yamaha P60, and I totally nerded out about that. I was very excited that Ben Folds picked the same piano that I have.
And then how about you, Dutch? You've probably played 6 shows with Earth Radio, you said.
Yeah, and I've done.
And then I'm not sure what else you've been doing. It seems like if you are anywhere and anybody knows you know how to play something. I have seen Dutcher work lights with his left hand and do a keyboard solo with his right hand from the soundboard before. So this dude is a master. So when I say that, this is not lightly. I've also seen him work lights while he was sleeping too, and he'll tell you more about that. But
yeah,
what have you been experiencing out there, being the artist on this stream from the? So it's kind of interesting. This panel does have something from every little bit of it here, and it sounds like you've actually been playing the show. So what's it like out there? Scary? Is there zombies attacking? Do you have to bring nunchucks? What's the word?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned it earlier. The thing that I've seen work, because I've played some shows with Earth Radio. I also play with Mark Lavengood's band. I've also done some weddings this month, especially. There's a lot of weddings, which I was, weddings were probably the most kind of have your guard up the whole time, like hoping. Like, okay, who's having the wedding? And but I can say that the 3 things I noticed. One, everything was very grassroots. It was very like, okay, what spaces could be conducive to music? Like, let's see if Rake Beer Project would be interested. And then we ended up doing a monthly performance on a Thursday where there'd be a yoga session and we'd provide improvised music, and then we do an hour concert afterwards. That was both events were ticketed, so people who wanted to attend the yoga could do that, and they would know that there's a cap and it's outdoors and people had plenty of space to spread out. And then people who also wanted to go to the show, they were more inclined to participate in both events because you're getting a little bit of, like, you're getting this yoga session, you're getting music, it's all outdoors, it's in kind of a community of people who they've set a standard for that business. So those types of shows were very great because even with masks on and people, making sure they're seated appropriately, it still felt like that little slice of like, oh yeah, this is what we all came here to do. Like, we came here to celebrate music and the Michigan community of artists. And, with Mark Lavengood, there's been some different types of live streaming events, like through Wealthy Theater. and partnered with WICE. They do a great job with their audio and video production, and it feels like you're getting to actually film and go into sort of a studio setting, and there is an audience virtually that does tune in. It varies, but it's nice to have a little bit of that feedback. And yeah, weddings have been interesting because a lot of the venues, they don't know what outdoors means because they've never had to think about doing an outdoor wedding. So they might have the tent up, they might have the table set, they might have everything looking nice, but I've consistently had to deal with issues with power, trying to run a PA, like catering, a bunch of other equipment, and then having multiple sites. Like, can we do the ceremony in this valley where there's no power? And then can you move everything in 10 minutes to this tent outside of where we normally have the wedding?
Is anybody asking you to cover WAP?
Not yet.
All right, good. I was like, that would probably be the hardest thing of the summer, is to try to say, oh my God.
Yeah, just like,
Hey guys, I'm so sorry to do this. Pandemic parenting. My child is melting down in the other room. I have to go. I'm so sorry.
Good luck.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, thank you. It's like the 2-month-old situation, and a 2-year-old. His birthday is next week. But thank you guys so much for having me on here. Yes, Fleming Artists, check it out. If you want to submit your art, we're not really taking anybody on right now because there's nothing to do, but come and we listen to all submissions and we will write back to you. We make sure that we do that. So feel free to come check us out. I'm on there. And it was so great to see you guys in person, in faces, virtually.
Yes.
Okay. Bye, guys.
See ya. So I think I've kind of scooped up a couple stray questions that have, partially been answered, but I have a couple of them listed. Someone was asking, do you find it harder to book a band you haven't seen live before? Which, in the case of being a venue talent buyer, it's kind of hard to see other shows than what you are programming. So I don't know if you have a criteria of, okay, we got to see live, or it's, if the press kit is convincing with good video, audio, that type of stuff.
Yeah, I'd say I haven't seen the majority of the bands that I've booked.
Right. Yeah.
So press kit and presentation goes a long way with that. So absolutely, I don't make that a requirement that I have to see them live before I book them.
No.
Yeah, and I would add
say something that really always gets me going is when a band that is playing there that we have a built-in reputation is like, hey, our friends from blah blah blah, you have to see them or go check them out somewhere. That always helps really well. If you can't see somebody live, or anybody in this feed right here, reaching out and being like Dutcher, it's amazing how often you're funneling and stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking of, it's, you guys get, tons of emails, tons of bands ask, any number of questions or try to present themselves. So it's not like, there's not a lot of trying to pull the wool over people's eyes or oh, maybe they won't notice, we haven't figured this thing out yet. It's you're gonna...
I've had some people come in with 20 minutes worth of music on a 45-minute slot before, I'll tell you that.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
No.
Best practices. And then I think this one might have been answered earlier, but it was, how long do you persist with weekly emails? I think it was once a week is what Laura said. Don't overwhelm the inbox that's already overwhelmed on your guys' end, is what I gathered.
Yeah, and I would say if I also like if I ask you some questions to make sure that's not, I wouldn't consider that like an inquiry necessarily. It's if I haven't gotten back to you. But also I always just honesty, like, oh, my first thing is, well, where else have you played in Kalamazoo? Well, nowhere yet. Okay, so like here's, and literally I'll be like, here's some ideas of some places that might, help you, like Shakespeare's. They're always great there, and that's a great, room to play in when you're just getting started. So I think there's a difference between persistence and like not hearing the answer, right? Just you know what I'm saying? Like, so, but if you don't hear back from me, I maybe I'm just like weird, or I don't like have too much of a life anymore, but I try to get back to everybody in 24 hours. That's my personal goal during the week. So if you haven't heard in a week, like maybe it's gotten lost or something, so send a message, right? But also just, if maybe talking your way onto a show or persisting so hard that somebody has to call the police on you for a show might not be the greatest way to launch a career. I'm sure it's been done. But the other way is just like really building up your reputation. I might not see, I have a 3-year-old. I don't go out to as many shows as I did unless I'm booking them. Or if they're in, backyards in Benton Harbor, right? But our sound engineers go to a ton of shows. They're in tons of bands. And if you're sweet and awesome, guess what they're going to do is they're going to send me a message right away and say, hey, you should check out this person. So it's really about, I think, like presenting your art, how you want to present it, and feeling really good in that authentic presentation is going to get you there faster than anything else. So.
Yeah, I think that's definitely good insight. And I see a question that kind of goes along with, finding those venues for artists that are just starting. You mentioned Shakespeare's lower level and
Old Dog.
Old Dog. Yep. Old Dog Tavern. Are there any other, I could think of some other venues too, to help answer this question, but they were looking for, I think it was Kat. She's looking for any recommendations of venues to kind of, circle around eventually getting to Bell's, getting into Founders in West Michigan that they could try and reach out to. Or if they're, if it's easier to point to a resource too that says like, here's a list of venues to start with.
I mean, something that people probably underestimate is the power of the open mic night at Founders. Nick James has been doing it for the last 12 years in a row, which might be, I don't know, that might be a record. It'd be hard pressed to find someone who can see a potential in a band while also encouraging someone to become more. He's the perfect person for it. So every week I'd hear if there was something that was exceptional coming through. And then, as you mentioned, Val, our engineers, they play in bands, they see all this stuff all the time. And if they're not working at our place, they're working someplace else. Mm-hmm. So they were always able to hit me to stuff. Getting a little bit older, I just turned 40, so it is harder to get out there. So that's kind of one of the paradox things, is with that the more that I love music, the more that I got into a point in my life where I maybe had a little more time to go see it. I had other responsibilities. So it's not that you become less of a fan of music, but you end up getting pulled in different directions. So I had a team when we were at our highest of 11 people. So that's enough folks to really be able to hip you to anything that you really need to see there. And then giving them the freedom to do what they need to do in order to bring acts in. And then also picking a band that I liked that I knew would bring in stuff that I could respect was something that was cool too. So you pick a local act and then just say, hey, fill it out with your friends and just let me know. I want final say. But like, that was always a good way, because I felt like at least all their friends are going to be in the room together that night. And that's kind of how things start a lot of times. I see that the second part of it was like, as far as all the venues and stuff, it's tough to rattle off a list, and I don't know of a particular source, but I do see, what are the indicators and how do you find if a band's a good fit? For me personally, I like things that kind of make people turn their heads a little bit, and kind of there's a gentleman named The Five, and then his wife Lady Five. who are
Killing it.
amazing. Killing it. But you know, the one of the refrains in their song is "Psychedelics are for me," and it's children chanting it. And he would come and play our open mic night, and would stand on tables with children at it, screaming "Psychedelics are for me" while wearing a skeleton mask pre-COVID. And it took a minute to boil or to simmer, but once it started simmering, the boil started going, and my man is killing it now. You know, there's really not. It's tough because once you start getting to a point, you know, we got this COVID thing keeping us all at bay. But Mike Dillon is another kind of crazy avant-garde artist. You know, where so things that you wouldn't think would fit in places. There's always a time and a place. I had the Sons of Funk play our Breakfast Out Breakfast, which is a early morning 7 a.m. start, 7 or 8 a.m. start, and they came out and played Maggot Brain, and they had Orange Juice, who was a guitar player for George Clinton for 20 plus years with a half-stack Marshall amp sitting on stage, and these were all a bunch of super old people, and it was just amazing. And it's still one of my favorite moments out there. So the only thing that's going to make it not a good fit is how you present it and how you leave people feeling. So take that chance, I will say. Go wild, but realize that the farther wild you go, you may not get asked back. And realize that everyone is kind of has. We've had people run our bar. We've had people, you know, thinking that it was going to make the show way more awesome, and it typically doesn't. So while I always encourage people to go crazy, you know, make yourself fit the room, get people excited about it. I understand there could be repercussions for that too. Like the act that really I remember about Founders before I even worked there. Oh Lord, of course it just goes right out. But this thing came out a lady with the horns. Kalmia is her name, lead singer.
Oh, yeah.
Gosh,
I can't remember the band name.
Rubble Bucket. But yeah, they started with 90
Oh.
people at Founders, and then they ended up growing to selling out our place and moving to the Intersection, and then like all over the place, tons of different venues. So it's just neat to. But the first time they showed up, they had a parachute, and they had all sorts of stuff and balloons, and it's like at first glance you're like, oh shit, but it turned out really freaking cool, and we brought them back many times over the years.
Yeah. I think that kind of answered. I saw Brooke's question in the chat of how you can tell if a band is a good fit and what are the markers of success for a show with a band. I know there's coming from the artist side. There's been, you know, times where we take a risk as a band taking that next step, and I remember the first time Earth Radio played Founders, and that was, you know, we knew people in the community. We, you know, seemingly have, you know, like going into it, okay, you know, people say they're going to come. We don't really know. Like, we don't have hard numbers. We were just getting going. And to have that moment of making an impact that audiences go out and tell people that, you know, staff members are talking about after the show, like, that's where, you know, if you can make an impression with an audience, like kind of how Val, you were mentioning your sound team, everyone just plays in bands and they talk to everyone they meet about who's doing cool stuff in the area, who you should go check out at a certain venue. And it is really kind of a, you know, a community thing where you start to, when you're out in front of people more often, or even presenting your music more regularly, I guess would be another indicator, whether it's live or you put out a record or you do a live stream of some kind, just making these kind of impressions that, you know, bring your audience to support you down the line. Like, I know people who I see at my friend's mom, who I went to high school with her son, and so I've known him and her for years, and she comes to every show that I do in Grand Rapids. And like, the Thursday was no different. She had her mask on. She was at Rosa Parks. She came up and said hi. And so, you know, it's nice to have those people that can kind of be your own, like, promo team, in the sense where you're not having to sift through Facebook analytics and trying to like, oh, what if we did a target audience demographic? What is our demographic? Like, music lovers is a good start for demographics.
Yeah, I'd say someone that is doing someone that does a really good job of being present, and I don't know why algorithms or whatever, but it seems that Desmond Jones does a really nice job with their fan base.
Yes.
And I don't even really like using the term fan base. I've always sort of hated that. But I think that their community that they've built around their band is really awesome. I'm really impressed by that. We had them open up Founders Fest like 2 years ago, and to see them get to where they're at now, this has only slowed them down a little bit, this whole COVID thing, and I really think they're kind of poised to do some really cool stuff. So that's another deal. Like, they started from, just hanging out with each other and built this really cool community, and they're all very personable people, and I think that helps too. Don't be anybody you're not, but to be someone who's out there thanking people for coming, for laying it all on the line like they always do, for putting a little bit of extra into it. I think that they're a great example of showbiz. They understand that not only is a business, but there's a show there too. I've had my heart broken with bands that I've managed in the past, and getting that told to me that there's just no show. And I'm like, man, they're the best thing that I've ever heard in my life. And it's like, well, there's nothing to see. We've heard it a million times. And the more you hear it, the more you see it, the more you do see how repetitious it can be sometimes. So figure out what else can separate you guys. Take care of your community. They'll take care of you. And your grandma, like you're saying, or some old lady, honestly, might start that spark out there, and who cares? Everyone's got a few. If they're 95 years old, they're gonna be just as excited as if they're 5 years old, and probably 10 times more. So invite your fans in, support them, let them support you. Be kind to everybody you see. Be good on the way up and on the way down. Don't ask people for cocaine. That's a felony right off the bat. And yeah, just kind of be professional in all your manners, and I guarantee you'll get there, guys. But I'm going to check out here, so thank you very much, everybody, for having me. My email is in the chat over there on the side, so make sure that you reach out if you guys have any questions. And it's nice seeing you guys. It's nice to meet you two, Brandon and Val, virtually.
Yeah,
Dutcher, it's great
you
to
as
see
well.
you guys.
Great to see you.
Yeah, and I think that we just need to have one big crazy festival when this thing is all over.
There
so
you go.
we'll have it at Val's house.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Bye.
Yeah.
Cheers,
See
Luke.
ya. Yeah, I think, we're down to these three, and we've answered all of the questions. So, yeah, I guess we can go ahead and wrap up. This was a great conversation. I appreciate both of your time, and it was a good to have the kind of behind the scenes chat and talk with people who can really understand what's going on behind the scenes, and get some good information out to the people who they're sitting at home wondering what to do. And yeah, so if you want to get in touch with either of these people, how should they contact you?
I just threw my email over there in the chat. It's just easy. VWalters@bellsbeer.com. Feel free. I do have reduced hours, but I'm still there. So yeah. At home.
Absolutely. Feel free to email me. I think in terms of our live streaming and stuff like that, we're still exploring possibilities, and I feel that we're probably going to give a little preference to the bands we've already canceled, and our local guys to kind of see what situation they're in and if they want to join in. But any inquiry is always welcome. So I always love just listening. Sometimes if you got something new, send it my way.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks again. And thanks to all of you watching out there. It's been really nice to see, the community coming together virtually to chat about all these things and navigate these spaces. So we appreciate all of you who are watching. And for those of you who might want to revisit some of these things, the stream also went to Facebook. So it'll be archived on the Michigan Music Alliance page there. Awesome. And you can take your notes after the fact.
Bye.
Right on.
Yeah, see
Thanks,
ya.
guys.
Have a good night.
Bye. Good night.
Yeah, take care, everyone.